Welcome to Chamber Chat, the business solutions podcast designed to help your company thrive. I'm your host, Charles Stannis. Today's episode is all about customer experience. Our customers have more power than ever. They have more access to competitors, a greater ease of switching, and more influence through social media and online reviews. That's why the best marketing money can buy is a customer who will promote your business. Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Chamber Chat. Today I'm joined with Gary Tomczyk, the Chief Experience Officer from NCH Healthcare System. Welcome, Gary.
Welcome. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to spend some time with you today.
Absolutely. So I'm really excited about our topic today, customer experience. And I've actually got some really interesting statistics that I wanted to kind of throw out there and kind of get us started with. So a company that you might have heard of right up the street here, Gartner, predicts that 89% of businesses are expected to compete mainly on customer experience. And I thought that was a really interesting statistic, especially in this day and age where industry trade secrets and technology has kind of leveled the playing field. And basically what that's saying is customer experience is really becoming the differentiator for other businesses. And another quick stat here from Zendesk, they say that 95% of customers tell others about a bad experience and 87% share good experiences, especially in this day and age with social media. Everyone's letting people know how their experience was. I think those stats are they speak for it, right? They're basically saying, hey, no longer do the companies have control. It's the customers that really have control because they're able to dictate, where they're spending their money, where they're spending their time. I thought those were just really interesting statistics that, once you step back and take a look at, you realize how important, the customer experience is for a business, no matter what industry, no matter, if you're a small company, if you're a large company, if you have one employee, if you have, 1,000 employees, it's basically saying, hey, customer service and customer experience should be your number one priority. So what are your thoughts on that?
So Charles, first of all, I agree with those statistics. If you take a look just at the NCH Healthcare System, the role that I'm in was specifically hired to ensure that we had a strategic focus on the customer experience. And you see that more and more across the industry as the information unfolds related to what other organizations are doing. But what I like to start with, though, is what is a customer experience. I think that'll help kind of ground us as we have this discussion.
Absolutely.
So if you look at Wikipedia, they define a customer experience as a product of an interaction between an organization and a customer over the duration of their relationship. And they make the interaction is composed of three parts. First, it's the customer journey. The second is the brand touch points that the customer interacts with. And third, the environment the customer experienced during the experience. So if you think about that, a good customer experience means that all the individual experience during all points of contact, are they meeting that individual's expectation? The challenge that we have, though, around this definition and in dealing with the customer experience is to understand that it doesn't have an end point.
Right.
It has a starting point.
Yeah.
The starting point is the first time that they have an interaction with someone about that. It could be on the telephone. It could be the first time they walked into your lobby.
Could be on their website when they're, live chat support nowadays.
You're absolutely right. And one of the things that those of us who've been doing this, I've been doing this type of research and working with organizations for over 35 years, what we have found is that a customer experience is really driven on the fact that they will come to purchase a product or service, and there's expectation related to an outlay maybe of cash or whatever it may be to buy that. But they don't evaluate you on the product. They evaluate you on everything around that.
Right.
For example, in a recent experience for me was Lexus. We wanted to purchase a Lexus. My wife and I, that's a car that we did a lot of research, and we chose to purchase a Lexus. We knew we wanted to buy that Lexus. In fact, it was from a local dealership here, right up the road from where the chamber is located. And we walked in that dealership. From the moment we walked in, the receptionist there came out from behind her counter and started talking to us why we're here, and just kind of began to offer us something to drink as well as a snack, and just oriented us to the location. Got us comfortable, and then before we even connected to a sales consultant, really interesting is she just spent time with us and talked to us about the service here, about the people there, and how she likes working there, and it made us
Makes you
even
feel
more
comfortable.
You're exactly right. By the time we spoke to the sales consultant about the vehicle we were interested in, it wasn't as much about the vehicle, it was about being part of the Lexus family and being able, what that means and how important you are as a customer, how we will treat you.
Building that trust.
You're exactly right. So even before we put our hands on a Lexus vehicle that we were interested in, or even what model, we had already had an orientation to what it is to be a customer and how you should be treated at a Lexus dealership. Obviously, we bought the Lexus, okay. But as we've talked to people about the Lexus, we don't talk about the Lexus, we talk about the Lexus dealership. They stayed in touch with us, they send us birthday cards. They reach out on occasion just to see how we are doing, if there's anything we can do to, to make your experience better as far as service and that. And so what I have found with them is that I've become a lifelong customer of Lexus. And if you think about that and translate that to what we're talking about today, Charles, I really believe that the organizations that are going to be successful in this treat you similar to what Lexus is. It's all the sum of all the parts around the product, not just the product.
And it doesn't end, like you said.
No.
Just because you left the showroom and you purchased, that relationship continued.
Yes. You're
and I think that's really important, because I think a lot of businesses, they forget that, to continue to grow that relationship, to foster that relationship, to continue to build that trust, like you said. I think that's really important.
Yeah, and businesses are different. For instance, here in healthcare, you still want to build loyalty. Now, the reason people come in healthcare is because it may be an emergent need, but they still have an opportunity there to make choices. And so we want to ensure that as they have that experience there, that we build loyalty. So whether it's them, a loved one, or a friend, or whoever it may be, they would recommend our facilities for their health care to them.
Right. So, when we talk about customer experience and why it matters, I mean, you hit the nail on the head there, right? Loyalty, promoting whatever industry, whatever service it is that you've experienced, whether it's healthcare, in your case, the Lexus, the automobile, you refer it to your friends, you let people know, you say, hey, this was great, you should check this out. And I think, in my opinion, when we talk about why it matters, to me, that's the biggest thing. You let your loyal customers market and, be your salespeople for themselves. It's really organic. Nowadays when people go and they buy something, what do? They look at reviews, they talk to their friends, they say, hey, have you done this? How is that? And I think that's how it kind of comes all back to having a good customer experience.
And Charles, your comments are spot on. I did a little research to prepare for our conversation, and so I'd like to share you a few statistics that I think will reinforce that point. Lee Resources tells us when customers are unhappy, there's a 91% chance they won't do business with you again.
That's a pretty big number.
Yes, and the White House Office of Consumer Affairs did a really neat study, and dissatisfied customers will typically tell 9 to 15 people about their experience, or some even tell 20 or more. So in essence, the good experience or the great experience aren't going to be talked about as much as a negative. In fact, a negative customer experience is a reason 86% of consumers will quit doing business with a company, according to a research done by the Consumer Impact Report.
And I think it's really easy nowadays to vent on social media, on the internet, to say, hey, I had this bad experience with X, Y, and Z company. They tell all their friends, their friends tell their friends, and before you know it, something as simple that could have taken 3 to 5 minutes to fix, it's blown up and it's become a huge issue for a company.
Yeah, and I'd like to give you just one more data points around that. So it takes roughly 40 positive customer experiences to undo the damage of a single negative review. That ratio is derived from a combination of human behavior, math, and logic. And here how it has put together. A customer who has a negative experience is highly likely to share that experience by leaving a bad review. A customer who has a positive experience, on the other hand, is unlikely to leave a good review. So an experience, only 1 in 10 happy customer will leave you that good review.
Yeah.
So your company or product rating, typically out of 5 stars, reflects an overall average of good and bad reviews. So if your goal is to maintain an overall rating of 4 stars, you need 4 5-star reviews to make up for every 1-star review. So assuming that only 1 of every 10 happy customers leaves a positive 5-star review, and knowing it takes 4 5 stars to make for each 1 star, you can figure it takes 40 positive customer experience to make up for a single review, which leads to why many organizations who are very successful in having a great customer experience have a really detailed process by how they monitor the customer during their experience. And when there are breakdowns, and there's referred to as service recovery, we take care of those during their visit, so when they leave,
it doesn't manifest into a bigger
that's
problem.
exactly right.
Yeah. So we talk about customer experience, and we're starting to kind of touch the points here. How do you make a great customer experience? You know, where do you start?
So first of all, from a customer experience, from my experience, you have to start in 2 places. You have to first you have to understand your external and your internal customers. And you say, well, what do you mean by internal customers? Those that are delivering the experience are your internal customers. And so you're not going to be able to deliver an excellent customer experience without your workforce being engaged, without them buying into the direction you're going, without them having ownership of
your mission statement, the why, the bigger picture.
The bigger picture. Because then if it doesn't, it becomes a task. And when you have a task that you're doing, you don't get that consistency that you get when you have that engagement. So first of all, I just want to make sure that we level playing set. Organizations are striving to do customer experience. You also make sure that you're taking care of your internal customer with your employee. But this focus right now is more on the external. So let me give you a couple examples of how do you ensure that it's a great customer experience. First of all, it needs to be, you need to understand your customer.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of organizations spend the time where they will do focus groups. They will interview their customers to understand what is their expectations, because you have to have an expectation of that visit or of that experience or that person experience to understand the customer. And many organizations then drive to a wow experience. But they take that baseline information, Charles, to understand how the experience and what it should make up, and then they put parameters around it to wow the customer doing that. Very similar to that, to the information I gave you on my visit to Lexus. I could have simply walked in there and bought a Lexus. I was already set to do that.
Right.
Okay. But what gave me the wow experience is everything they did to ensure that I understood this is more than buying a vehicle. This is a purchase. It's a very big purchase, but you're now part of their family, and we're going to take care of you during that. And my wife's comment during that was, it was the first time we've bought in several cars over the years that she really didn't feel pressured, and she really walked out there feeling good about, boy, I'm pretty excited. I got a great vehicle, but I also been part of this experience that I'm going to talk to others about.
Yeah. And then in turn, she becomes a loyal customer. She becomes a promoter of whatever that brand is, and that how it kind of comes all full circle. One of the things I really like about nowadays is there's so much technology out there that kind of helps with that. Mm-hmm. There's so much data gathering that you can do to analyze your audience to see, hey, who they are, what they need, and really how you can, personalize what it is that you do directly to them. And I think that's awesome. I think there's a lot of opportunity out there, especially, like I said, in the technology field that makes it easier. And I think people have become almost accustomed to that. They're so accustomed to, getting that personalized experience. They're so accustomed to, with technology out there to have, instant gratification and instant response times and instant experiences that I think, that's where the challenge is, right? So you have to make sure that, you're at the top of your game, because like we said, if you're not, they're going somewhere else.
Yes, and you kind of hit the nail on the head, Charles, related to a customer experience. So one of the challenges in a customer experience is that today's wows are tomorrow's expectation. So if, let me I'll go back to the Lexus example, okay? And that wowed us. But if I came back there tomorrow and bought the car, my expectations is exactly what they did.
Right.
So what are they going to do to wow me? Okay, because
they set the bar really high.
That set that bar really high. So the challenge in whether it's healthcare, retail, or whatever business that you have, is that when you do a baseline understanding of your customer and you drive expectations to wow them, that gets you to a point today. But tomorrow you're going to have to up your game.
Right.
You're going to have to do other things to ensure that you build that loyalty, because if not, they'll be satisfied, but you haven't wowed them. And if you go back to the numbers, you want those individuals that will wow you, will give you those 5-star ratings or whatever it may be. So this continuous loop of understanding, gathering feedback on your customers. Now, many organizations survey their customers, but unfortunately that survey is post-visit. Right. So by the time you get that, it helps you understand the opportunities, and maybe help you fine-tune your service delivery. But the organizations that excel in this are doing surveys through the visit. You have people observations. Many organizations have people out there just mingling with their customers, understanding what's working, not working at the time. Some are doing feedback. They're going through why the person is whether they're shopping or that, just to understand how we are doing, gathering the information. If things need to change, they'll change course right at that point.
Right.
The organizations, though, that are relying on the post-feedback are the ones that are challenged the most with exceeding the customer, because it's always downstream and coming back. So now that is good to have that downstream feedback, because you can benchmark yourself against other performers and that. But the organizations, though, that really have blazed a trail in the field of customer service are the ones that are doing it real time.
So what are some other things that companies can do to, and you touched about, observing and, changing course. What are some other things that, you've experienced that companies can do for that during visit survey?
And so what you'll see in organizations, they put in people in different roles, much like that person that I met at the Lexus dealership that came out from behind and basically became kind of that spokesperson and carried us through the different steps. You'll see in organizations where people are using individual like a concierge role or a first impression role or a customer agent.
Right.
And so as you enter into the purchasing or into that business, you basically have someone there with you during that. Not to antagonize, but to be there to ensure that you get through the whether it's a purchasing decision or you get through being able to see the opportunities that an organization has. But they'll put people up front with you to kind of do your steps. What you also will find out in many of the organizations that have really hit a home run is they try to personalize it.
Yes.
And that personalization is as important. Those individuals that are looking and spending that time with you, they're there to ensure that they understand you, what you want, and maybe talk about your loved one, or maybe talk about your dog, or the small things, and they'll key on that. One of the things that you'll see sometimes in the healthcare arena is that we have individuals coming up to the patient's room, and they build a relationship with the patients, asking about how we're doing certain aspects of the care. But before we go into that, we build a relationship with them. Here's a very good example. We had a patient in one of our healthcare systems that in one of the locations that wasn't doing well related to just feeling good about herself. And as we dug a little bit deeper, as a person was rounding, interacting with her, they found out that person really misses Mr. Dog. She's by herself, she's single, widowed, and really missed her dog. Well, because the dog wasn't a service dog, we couldn't do that. But we reached out, we got pictures of her dog, okay? And we brought those pictures, we framed those pictures of her dog and put it in her room.
That's awesome.
Now, she was thrilled.
Yeah.
Okay. We would never have been able to do that and make that difference with that person if we wouldn't have spent the time to get to know our customer. Okay. One other example, we had and I can give you countless of those, but here's another example I think you'll find. There was a patient that had been hospitalized for quite a long period of time, and the staff recognized that she just didn't seem to be the same. And so as we had that interaction with her and talked about that, she said she was a dancer. And she said, and she just loved to dance, and she didn't feel because of her health she'd be able to dance.
To
dance anymore, but she missed that. So we went and got pictures of dancers, okay? And we found an employee that had basically a professional dancer. And that person sat down and met with her and brought her these pictures, okay? And we put those pictures in her room, and her spirits, just lifted. And so anything that you can do, we can do in our businesses to not only understand what they're here to purchase, but personalize, those are going to be those wow moments where you build that loyalty.
Yeah. And those are going to be the loyal customers that keep on coming back.
Yes, and they'll tell everybody about it. I can assure you that when that person left, they're going to say, they brought pictures of my dog. They made pictures of my dog and put it in my room.
Yeah.
Or that person would say, they brought a dancer, a professional dancer, and we just had a great conversation. And they'll talk about that. They're not going to talk about the care they received.
Right.
They're going to talk about
the experience.
The experience. Yeah. And there you go.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So one of the things that I know we didn't really talk too much on is how to make sure that your customer experience, whatever industry that you're in, is up to par with what people are used to, right? So I know one of the things, I'll use healthcare for example. It's really competitive in Southwest Florida. Is really knowing what your competitors are doing, right? Give you that edge. So talk a little bit about that, how you guys have adapted or changed anything, or you've listened to your customers and they said, well, I got X, Y, and Z here. They expect that now at you guys as well, right? So
you bring up a very good point, and this applies for Charles, for any organization or business. Most everyone has competitors.
Yeah.
Okay. And we have a lot of competitors here in Southwest Florida, and we all ascribe to the same method of delivery of healthcare, but what's the difference is what we do in between. So how we measure our effectiveness and compare it is we use national research, okay? And there's research companies that will give you information related to whether it's by region, whether it's by location. Many times you don't get your information to the next competitor, but you'll be able to get standardized data and know how you are comparing related to that. So for instance, here we can compare ourselves to hospitals in the Southwest Florida and how we compare to that. And so our aspiration is to drive our experience so we are better than those, okay? And what we focus in on, Charles, is that loyalty. When we look at our data, we focus in on what we call the top box. Your top box is the highest possible results that a consumer can give you out of your question scale. And so when you focus in on that highest possible result, and you give you an example, we use a scale, it's not a satisfaction scale, it's a frequency scale for our behavior, and it goes never, sometimes, usually, always. We focus on that percent always.
Yeah.
And strive to keep on improving that, because that percent always is what determines your loyalty. And most organizations are doing that. So I would recommend that any organization, when they do their research and comparative research, rather than just taking a mean score, which is sum of all the parts, go to the right of that equation and focus in on that. What is your loyalty? Now, some organizations use a question that understands loyalty, like I would recommend.
Would you come back?
Would you come back? Would you refer us to others? Okay. And I think that is great, but the question itself doesn't determine loyalty. It's what's in the responses. And so you have to unbundle the question, look at your responses, and as you think about improvement, drive that number. So 70% today say that they said always they would recommend you. Organizations that really have a handle on customer service will say we're at 70%. Today, we want to grow that to 72%. We want to go that to 73%. We go that to 74%. And you can use whatever number you have. The best organizations, they may be at 98%. They're going to say, how do we get to 98.2? How do we get to
99?
How to 99.3? Yes. Yeah. And so the beauty is that most every organization that I've had the privilege to work with has data, have comparative data, have that information, downstream of how the customer views it. My challenge to to any organization is using that information, though, to understand where you're at from a loyalty perspective, and what are you doing to drive that loyalty and get better and better.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. So for companies that are a little bit smaller and maybe they don't have access, or maybe there isn't an expansive data pool that they can research and pull data from, what are some other small things that maybe a staff of 2 or 3 could do to start to measure their customer experience to see how they can actually improve it?
So I would start at a couple places. First of all, you don't have to have comparative data to understand how your customer views us. You could have your own way of gathering that information from a simple research tool that you use, or maybe it's customer feedback. Many organizations use focus groups, Charles, and that is of people who have been a customer. Some use focus groups of people who have not chosen them as a customer to begin to understand why. And they begin to pull that information together. But you don't need to have a robust measurement and use a robust measurement company to benchmark. You can benchmark internally against yourself and to understand through the customer experience how you are performing. So what I mean by that is many base it on the outcome. Would you recommend and that. However, there are some organizations that I would encourage them to measure the front end process. How did we do in our first interaction with you? How was your web? Okay, was I able to navigate and get that information there and use that and build on that? In the middle of the experience, tell me about the interaction with whoever it may be and how was that? Did you get the information you need? How do we do at the tail end? Are we staying, how we staying in touch with you? So if you break apart that experience, you measure the components of that experience, you go below that, and then you drive that. So I may not have comparative to other businesses, but I have my own, and you'll begin to see pieces that you can really work on to make it stronger and build systems around that.
Yeah. So one of the things I really like that you mentioned, we didn't talk too much about it yet, was your non-consumers. Paying attention to them. Why are they your non-consumers? There's a reason, right? Whether it's product or whether it's service. And you brought it up. Kind of elaborate a little bit on that.
So what you will see is that all of us have reasons for us, whether it's purchasing an item or utilizing a particular service. There's reasons we have chosen to go to that one instead of us. Okay, and so what we encourage you to do is begin to understand why those decisions are being made to go away from your organization, and simply have a breakfast or simply have a lunch. People will come and share with you. Many organizations use volunteers in the community to help them with that piece, because the volunteers tend to have a lot more opportunities in their own network to begin, and they hear a lot, okay, and they're more than willing, and many of these volunteers, in particular here in our area, have a lot of knowledge. They've run successful businesses. They've been very successful entrepreneurs, whatever it may be, utilize them to begin to help you understand a little bit more about your organization. And I'm not saying volunteers is the only aspect, but you will find that through networking, going to events, and just by listening, you'll begin to pick up reasons why. And the other thing that many organizations do, they do secret shopping.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm a big advocate of secret shopping. And that what secret shopping is basically having someone go through your system and experience that. And it could be simple, and I really can't, let's say, secret shop many people coming in to have an operation. But what I can have them secret shop is by making calls to maybe some of our clinics, or making phone calls to the operator and trying to get information, or going up to a unit or whatever it may be and seeing how the interaction was. Did I get that that eye contact? Did they come out and greet me? Did they create that wow experience?
Yeah.
So we challenge one another with that. Everything that we can do. Go on your web, have a secret shopper go on your web and try to see how many clicks do they have to go through to get to whatever it is.
Right.
And so you have a baseline then, and they come back and give you that. And so let's say it's taking you 15 clicks. What can you do to get it to 5 clicks?
Right.
The other thing that just along the website, we've done some research over the years around the customer experience. And what you're seeing now in the industry is a shift in the website. When I used to go to websites before, what you had found it's about the company. Okay, it's all the things that we offer, it's all the gadgets, it's all the things that we have. What you're finding more now in those websites that are getting the best reviews, it's about the customer.
Yeah.
What are they coming to you for? Tailoring your website around the needs of the customer.
What's the problem you're solving? Yep.
What the problem is. You're looking at, many websites now have a pull-down menu that will give you different languages. Okay,
Yeah.
because maybe here having Spanish or maybe Korean, whatever it may be advantageous.
Yeah.
Okay. You're also finding that you're making it easy for the person to get at the information. One of the challenges that we have in healthcare is paying our bill. Okay, the bills sometimes are confusing. Most of the times they are confusing.
Right.
And so how do you make that better? Well, they'll come to your website and they're looking for information how to pay that bill. So that should be resonated at the top of my menu, not have to have them drill through.
You don't want them to have them search for it.
That's exactly right. And so we encourage, and I would encourage any organization to take just a good hard look at your web page and make sure it's front facing to the customer. They're coming to you. They can drill down and find out about your leadership. They can find out about your products and that. But what are they coming for? And you can do a search engine. You can find out what their page they click on, and you design your website. Focus on what they're there for.
Awesome.
And you'll see a lot better success.
Awesome. Well, I know you guys opened up a freestanding emergency department right here, a couple blocks away from us. How's that been going for you guys? I know you guys been open there for about a year, I believe.
Yes, so we opened that up last December, and we're very proud of the care that we've been able to provide to this, this community. Been well received. The experiences have been amazing, and here's why I say it's amazing. We use national, a research company that gives us the information, so I can take that experience there and compare it at a national level. And we're in the 90th, 95th percentile of ED experiences nationally. But what does that mean to you or I? Probably not a lot. It means a lot to our staff to know that. But what it means to the consumer is that when you have that opportunity in your life where you need health care, you're going to get more than just taking care of the health care. You're going to get an experience where you're treated from the very first interaction, not just when you leave, but following up to ensure that we're making that phone call to make sure we're doing the things that
journey never ends.
It never ends.
Yeah.
And staying in touch with you, building those relationships. It's one of the things, and I challenge, not challenge, but I offer that to anybody across the Collier County, Southwest Florida, to utilize. We have two Freestanding emergency departments, the one that we just opened here, we have the one at the corner of Collier and Immokalee. We have the only pediatric emergency department here, located our adult ED right there off of Immokalee, and we have two large acute care medical centers and a wealth of clinics. I don't want to sound too salesy, but I'd be a disservice without bringing forward the opportunity to just thank the amazing physicians, the amazing caregivers, adults taking care of pediatrics. We got a pediatric inpatient unit in this community. Just having that privilege to take care of everyone in Southwest Florida that needs health care at that time and that moment. We just look for that. It's a welcoming opportunity.
Awesome.
And I'm proud of them, Charles.
Awesome.
Really am.
Well, thanks so much, Gary. I appreciate it. I encourage anyone listening out there, whether they work at a business or they own a business, to take a really good hard look at their customer experience and see how they can improve it. Because as we learned here today, it's really the what's differentiating business. It's really what's differentiating your services. So thank you so much, Gary.
And thank you, Charles, and the Chamber for all you do here in this community.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Chamber Chat. Don't forget to tune in next Tuesday for a brand new episode. You can find us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all major podcast platforms. Don't forget to subscribe.